maybe be against me, and they were all for me, and I felt much better. But they were all waiting, and it's really great. How are you? Good. I just got in. I was in New Hampshire, where we're doing great, and we're doing great here. And we're doing great in Iowa. We're leading now in the polls in Iowa. Sit down, everybody. Sit down. Go ahead. They're a great group. Well, we set the record on the groups. I love you too, darling. Who said that? Stand up. I love you. I love you. Thank you. And I love that book. You know, I want to thank Joe Dugan, who has been fantastic. He is a good guy. Really good guy. He puts his heart and his soul into this. And nothing's easy in life, I can tell you. But Joe's been doing it for a long time. So he's a very special guy. We have a couple of things to discuss. You know, the beautiful thing is that I don't use teleprompters because I speak from the heart, right? And the head, but the heart. Perhaps I go the head first and then the heart, because maybe that's more important nowadays when you look at what's happening to the country. But I like to be able to talk about current events. And when you read the speeches, you know, a lot of the guys get up and they read a speech, they leave in 15 minutes. Everybody goes, what happened? Is that all there is? You know, like the song, is that all there is? So we don't read the speeches and we don't do the teleprompter thing. But a couple of things. I want to talk about the debate because I thought it was a great experience. It's been a great experience for me. It's been for me, it's been a great experience. You know, I did, yeah, I guess. Thank you. Who said that? Stand up. Let me. That's very nice. Well, we've had some interesting debates and an interesting time, and it is different. You know, I've been a job producer. I've built a great business, but it's been job producing and employ currently thousands of people, and over the years, tens of thousands of people, many Hispanics. And I say we're going to do fantastically with Hispanics. I think we're going to do incredibly with the African Americans, where I poll very well. And somebody said there was a poll that came out at 20 or 25%. Actually, it was 25%. And they said if Trump gets 25% of the African American vote, the election's over. You win. I mean, you win. But we do poll great with that. And we're just polling, I mean, no matter where. I have a list. I'm not going to go over it very much in this group because this is a very intimate, friendly group. This is my friends. And normally I love to go over the polls because I'm number one in every poll virtually. And I love to go over them, but here I'm not going to bother other than to say New Hampshire through the roof. And we're going all over. We are not playing games. We're not going to do what they did the last time. Because if you remember the last time, we should have beaten Barack Obama. Should have beaten him. Something happened. And I'm not blaming Romney, but you got to work at last month. That last month was important. And whether you like Obama or not, every time you turned on television, he was on Jay Leno and Letterman and all these, and our representative wasn't. And we got to work, and we have to work hard, and we're going to win this thing. Because having 4 more years of Barack Obama, but I think perhaps worse, depending on what happens with Hillary, I don't know. Maybe these guys, boy, look at all those cameras back there. Wow, that's very impressive. That is that is an impressive. I thought this was going to be just a little quick stopover with my friends from the Tea Party and Jerry and Joe and all of my, look at that group of people. Oh, I guarantee you they weren't here for the other groups, huh? I guarantee, I know. You know, it's always tough when they come in. I think every speech I've made in the last 2 or 3 months has been on live television, right? I'm saying, can I ever have a speech which isn't on live television? You know, it would be nice. No good? I like it. I would love to do 1 or 2 before this campaign. Well, actually, that's not good because that means things are not going well. If they stop turning on those televisions, that means things. So we'll continue to go live, okay? But it really has been an interesting period of time for me because I've been a businessman, and I've been a negotiator and a job, you know, employer, real estate person, done a lot of different deals, but mostly real estate. And I've had a great time. I love the real estate business. I love doing what we're doing. We're building all over the world, and we're doing deals all over the world. We're doing a deal right on Pennsylvania Avenue, a big hotel that's going to be spectacular right by the White House. It's sort of interesting because one way or the other, I'm getting to Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, one way or the other. I'll either be here or I'll be here. Not so much difference. But so it's one way. And it's sort of interesting. It's the post office. And everybody, so many companies want it. It's one of the most sought-after projects in the history of the General Services Administration. And it's an incredible building, the old post office. And we got it, which is amazing. We got it in the Obama administration. Can you believe that? No, can you believe it? I was even surprised. I said, I think we had the best plan. They wanted to make sure everybody was very strong financially because they want to get it done. It's very important economic development. And we put our plan in, and others put it in. Great companies, many, many companies, and great companies, the biggest hotel companies in the world. And we were given it about 2 years ago. We started construction, and we're about a year ahead of, but can you imagine that? A year ahead of schedule. We're under budget and ahead of schedule, which is what the country has to do. It's really what do you think, right? It's what the country has. So we're under budget substantially, and I will tell you, under budget, and yet we're building even beyond because it's so good. We're going to make that, we think it's going to be probably maybe the finest hotel in the United States. We're going beyond that, but it's going to be one of the finest hotels in the United States. I have one of them right now in Chicago, is considered one of the great hotels of the world. I think this is going to be something, I don't want to say top it. You don't want to say top your own stuff, but this is something that could conceivably top it. It's going to be great. But the beauty is that when you hear those words, ahead of schedule and under budget. And I think that's so important because, I see these projects and I read about the projects. I read about one the other day where, they're building an airplane and it's 5 times over budget and it's years and years late, sometimes decades late. And by the time they get it, it's obsolete and they've spent, billions and billions of dollars. And you look at what they do with the submarines and the nuclear submarines and all of the tremendous cost overruns that they have. And I just, you build and you got to know what the hell you're doing and you got to get it done and you got to fight with the contractors. And there's so many stories I can tell you about government. A little one just quickly is the Wollman Rink. 8 years and the city couldn't get the ice skating rink open in Central Park. And I got involved. This is when I was young, but there's nothing different. There's no difference. I just did one recently, which is almost the same thing in Ferry Point. They couldn't get this big golf course project open, and it's been under construction. They think for 30 years. Okay, think of that. It was a landfill and just everything. They don't even know when it started, but a long time ago. And I think it would have gone on for many, many more years, and I got it done in a year. It's open now. It just got the best new course in the United States from one of the big magazines, and it's doing great. And it's not that big. Although I tell you something, world's most expensive golf course. They spent over $200 million to build a golf course. Okay, what should it have cost? Maybe $7, but they spent over $200 million to build a golf course, and I think it's much more than that. Nobody even knows. Do they know? They have no idea. When you say, is it 2? They say, we don't know. The money, and here we're talking about local government, can you imagine what the federal government is wasting? And when you see the kind of waste, fraud, corruption, it's incredible. With the Wollman Rink, so I had an ice skating rink, and I have a daughter, Ivanka, who everybody knows. She was a little girl. Yeah, and she said to me, Daddy, I'd like to go ice skating. I said, honey, it's going to be built next year. Don't worry about it. It would look down on the rink. And next year she'd come, what about ice skating, Daddy? And I'd say, baby, it's a mess. It's really... And then finally, after about 3-4 years of her asking me, it's an ice rink. It's not that simple, but it's an ice rink. And it's massive. It's one of the biggest, and it's, to this day, I've been running it ever since, but it does great. But I said, let's just see. So after about 4 years of her asking me, I said, I got to go look at this thing. And I went down, and I looked, and there were hundreds, massive piece of concrete, probably 6, 7, 8 times the size of this room. And I said, man, look at all those workers. They're all workers, and they're all sitting there, and nobody's working. And this has been going on for years and years and years. And I went to the mayor of New York City, who at the time was Ed Koch. I said, Ed, this is ridiculous. Forget about my daughter. I'd like to get her ice skating. But the whole city, and it was like a big scandal. It was on the front page of the papers. They couldn't get an ice skating rink done. So it wasn't that easy with him, believe me, because he didn't want to be stood up. He was a very paranoid guy, that I can tell you. And finally, I went to the newspapers. I said, I want to build it. I want to get it open. I'll get it open in 4 months. And if I can't do it for $2 million, I will pay for the course myself. And they had spent probably, they don't say there's another one. You never find out what these, I think they spent over $20 million on it. But I said, I'll spend, and most of the money that I was going to spend, a lot of it was demolition because you had to tear down everything that was built because it was built so badly. Anyway, finally he agreed to let me do it. I took it over, and the ice wasn't melting. They couldn't get ice. And the slab was poured, and it was this far off. In other words, it's got to be level, so the water is thin and nice, and you create ice, right? Well, one part, the water was like 1.5 feet high. The other part was down here, so they couldn't make the water. And I said, man, that thing's really off. So we had to rip out the entire slab. And then I saw the man who was the freezing man. I said, where is your office located? He said, in Miami Beach. I said, Miami Beach? He said, no, I've never done it. I said, we focus on air conditioning. I said, that makes sense. I like air conditioning, but I don't. So I said, well, what's the problem? And I said, you know what? A friend of mine worked for the Montreal Canadiens, the ice hockey team. I called him up. I said, Charles, could you do me a favor? Do you have a guy that does anything about, like, making ice? Oh, sure, we have a guy. He's great. In-house. He comes down. He looks at me. He sees it. Calls me up 10 minutes after. He said, Mr. Trump, you're using Freon. You want to use water with salt in it. I said, what do you mean? He said, you have Freon. They're pouring. And you have to see this. They have tubes of copper. And the tubes of copper are miles long because it goes from one side. They have to be 3 inches apart. Goes back, forth. And they'd put the copper, and copper is very expensive and very valuable. So every night they'd lay the copper, they'd come back the next day, it was all stolen. Okay? So they'd lay it again, then finally they went and hired a big security company that had guards all around the rink. And the other problem with it is if there's a little pinhole, you got miles of this stuff because it's so long. And if there's a pinhole, the gas escapes and you don't make the ice, okay? It's just one of those things. So I said to him, what's going on? So they finally got security, and they were great. They did for 7 days, and then the security took a day off. The entire rink was wiped out. This went on for years. Somebody made a fortune on copper. Anyway, so I get this guy down, nice guy from the Montreal Canadiens, real hockey people and ice people. And he said, Mr. Trump, what you want is a rubber hose. You put water in it, and you put salt in the water. And the salt means the water can't freeze. I said, wow, that sounds good. He said, we call it brine. And the machine takes it, mixes, puts it through. It's simple. And you need rubber hose. Nobody steals it because it's rubber. Who the hell wants rubber? I guess they steal rubber too, right? In New York, maybe they'll steal it. Maybe they won't. Actually, New Yorkers have very high values. They won't steal anything. Very, very high values. They don't steal. Nobody steals. Nobody steals in New York. Nobody steals. So we laid miles of it. I took out all of the concrete. We laid miles of it, of the rubber, and we tested. There were no leaks, no nothing. There was no theft because nobody wants it. And we laid just beautiful. It was all down. Then we called up the concrete guys. We had the most incredible pour because it's such a huge slab. And ideally, you want to pour it at one time. All things the city doesn't know. So the construction people know. So we pour it at one time. Beautiful job. And the cement mixers were lined up. This is at 58th Street, 59th Street. The cement mixers were lined up to Harlem, all the way back. That's a long, and they poured all day long. They poured for a day and a half, and it was beautiful, perfectly level, done with lasers. Anyway, bottom line, turned it on, put the brine through it, the water, and voila, beautiful ice. To this day, it was so beautiful. And I did it for less than $2 million. And they study it now in the business books. We can do the same thing with our government on a huge scale. I mean, it's the same thing. It's no different. It's no different. Really, it's no different. It's very funny. I like Newt Gingrich. Actually, Newt Gingrich did very well over here, but I like Newt. He's a great guy. And he called me up and he said, I read the story about Wollman Rink. Would you please tell them the story of Wollman Rink? So that story, I haven't told that story in a long time, but that story is in honor of Newt. But he really thinks it's a great story because it's indicative of what can be done. And it finished way ahead of schedule. And to this day, it's probably the busiest ice skating rink in the world. I mean, it's amazing. You should see that on a Saturday. They have lines that are 4 blocks long to get in. And people are great, and they're in love with the place. So if you have knowledge, like you don't use people from Miami Beach to do a rink with, And by the way, they do use, you use Freon for an air conditioner. That's what they use. That's what you have. But Freon for an air conditioner is a little different than, I wouldn't want to use brine for that, right? But it's sort of, you have to use people that know what they're doing. But Newt called me up. He said, you got to tell that story because that's such a great story. So there's the story. And it's been a great thing, and the city saved a lot of money, and it's been really a great experience. And they actually study that. You go to a lot of the great business schools, and they study that as to what you can do with free enterprise, with private people, with private business, compare that to government. And there's something very true about that. And they actually study it in the business books in a lot of the business schools, I think including the Wharton School of Finance, #1 business school. So we have a lot of things have happened since we made this journey. You know, I journeyed forth, and it takes guts to run for president. I've never done this before, and it takes guts. And on June 16th, I said, look, you know, we're just going to do this. And I'll never forget standing at the top of the now famous escalator, because you've seen that picture with myself coming down with Melania. And I'll never forget looking down into that vast basement, we call it the garden level, and seeing all of these guys. I mean, what you have down there, as much as you have down there now, times 10. And it looked like the Academy Awards. I said, what are we doing, the Academy Awards? And we gave a speech, and we talk about illegal immigration. Oh, wow. I never saw anything. Rush Limbaugh said he has never seen incoming like he saw with me. Incoming means, boom, trying to get you. And then it turned out that, you know, you had the killing of Kate, who was an amazing woman in San Francisco. And you had Jamil in Los Angeles. And you had so many other things happen. The veteran, 65 years old, a woman, 65 years old, a veteran of the Army. And she was raped, sodomized, killed by an illegal immigrant. And so much. You have no idea. And I said, we got to have borders. We got to have strong borders. We got to build a wall. We got to have a wall. We got to have a wall. And you go up to New Hampshire. It's amazing, because New Hampshire, they're amazing people, and they have a tremendous heroin problem. They have a tremendous problem up there. You wouldn't think, you know, you don't equate that with New Hampshire. It's one of the first questions I get all the time. And it pours in through the southern border, and we're going to have a wall. Who's going to pay for the wall? Does anybody know? Right? Believe me. When I'm on stage with these guys, okay, and it's now guys because Carly's doing the other one, which is fine. But when I'm on stage with these guys, they come to me sometimes. They say, why do you say that Mexico's paying? Why do you say that? I said, because they're going to pay. But how can you get them to pay? Because they're politicians. They're all talk, no action. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're saying it. So they're saying, no, but it's true. And I like some of them. They're saying, but how can you do that? They don't even fathom it. Now, the business people understand, and here's why. Mexico makes a fortune off the United States. The wall is peanuts. Peanuts. You know, they've been talking about building a wall for years. China built a wall that's 13,000 miles long 2,000 years ago. And my ambition is to have ours be much higher. It's not going to be much bigger. Do you ever see the width of that wall? It's like 3 times wider than this room. We don't need the width. We need the height. But China built a wall 2,000 years ago that's 13,000. We essentially need 1,000 miles. It's 2,000 miles. But we really, because you have natural borders, natural barriers that are very, very substantial. So we're going to build a wall. And Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Now, Mexico, I love Mexico. I love the people of Mexico. Many Mexican people work for me. And I do business with them. But their leaders are too smart, too cunning, too sharp for our leaders. And we're going to have a wall. And people can come into the country, but they're going to come in legally. They have to go through a process. And they're going to come in legally. And we're going to have a country back. Because right now, if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. We don't have a country. Okay? We don't have a country. And so we're going to have a real wall. It's going to be a beautiful wall. It's going to be a big wall. It's going to see this ceiling. This ceiling is peanuts. Believe me, this is not a wall. We're going up many times. And let's put it this way. If somebody ever gets up there, they're not going to want to come down very fast. That I can tell. So we're going to have a great wall, and it's going to do the trick. And, you know, you can ask about walls, because just speak to Israel about walls. Walls work when you have the right wall. Walls work. And when I see the way we negotiate, for instance, I have been going wild for years about the prisoners. I call them the hostages, our 4 people. So let's start with the other day. We had 10 sailors who innocently probably were in a little bit of water that was not perfect. Instead of saying, hey, folks, you got to get out of here, you're a whole big deal. When I saw those young people on their knees in a begging position with their hands above their head and rifles pointing at their head, And I heard the voice of the guy from Iran. I don't know if anybody heard it because they sort of downplayed it at the end. But the first couple of days I heard this voice. This was not a nice character. This is a character I'd like to be doing other things with. Bad guy. And I heard that. And, they're trying to downplay it as much as possible. And then finally they released him. But they only released him for one person, one reason. And the reason was very simple. They're waiting for $150 billion. $150 billion. So I've been hitting them hard, and I think I might have had something to do with it. You want to know the truth? Who's using it? It's a part of my staple thing. I mean, I go crazy when I hear about this. You go absolutely wild because how is it possible? We have one who's in there who's a reporter for the Washington Post. He didn't do anything wrong, by the way. You had something, although a lot of the people that work for the Washington Post do, but that we won't say. No, Washington Post is actually they've been pretty nice lately. I must be honest with you. But you have a person who's in there because he's a minister. He's a Christian minister. He's a pastor, and you have people that didn't deserve to be there. They're in one of the worst prisons in the world, and we had to do something. So I'd always talk about it. So today, I heard, they're being released like it's this big. First of all, it should have taken place 3.5, 4 years ago. Whenever the hell they started. You ever see an agreement take so long as this? It went on. How long has this thing been going on? Years and years. Should have been done right at the beginning. They should have said, listen, we got to have our prisoners back. They would say, no, you leave the room. They'll call you back. You double up the sanctions. They'll call you back within 48 hours, 100%, okay? But we waited and waited and waited. So here's the deal. So I figured, wow, that's a long time. Then they're getting, they get their money today or tomorrow. So the prisoners are going to be released when they get the money. $150 billion. But here's the other thing. We just heard about it 10 minutes ago, because I said, that's horrible. It should have happened years before. But they're getting 7 people that they've wanted, much more serious, real people meaning they committed real problems. And they're getting, I guess, 14 or 15 other people that are on the watch list of terror and other. These are really bad dudes, and they're being taken off the watch list. So they're getting essentially 22 people and $150 billion. So here's the deal. We give them $150 billion. We give them essentially 22 people. But these are people that really did have problems. And we're getting back 4 people that didn't do anything wrong. That's the way we negotiate. That's the way we negotiate. It's so sad. It's so sad. And this has been going on forever. Bergdahl. We get Bergdahl, a dirty, rotten traitor, right? We get Bergdahl, Sergeant Bergdahl. How did he ever get to be a sergeant? We get Bergdahl, and they get, 5 people, killers, that are back on the battlefields. The press thinks they're not back. They're back. Believe me, they're back. 5 people that they most wanted. They're back on the battlefield, or will be, top-level people that they've wanted for 9 years. So we get a dirty, rotten traitor that I'd fly back, I swear, I'd fly him back, I'd drop him right to hell, right in the middle of that. I would drop him. And don't forget, folks, because I've seen the parents, 5 people at least, and it could be 6, but at least 5 people were killed looking for Bergdahl. They went out looking for him. This is not friendly territory. And they went out looking for him. So at least 5 people were killed looking for Bergdahl. And now Bergdahl's going to trial. And a lot of people say nothing's going to happen to him. Now, in the old days, when we were strong as a country, he would have been shot. He would have been like fair trial, boom, if he's guilty, he's gone. Right? That would have been 40, 50 years ago. 20 years ago, at least he'd be in prison for a long time. 10 years ago, he would have been in prison, maybe for a short time. Now they're talking about nothing. 6 people, 5 people, I'm almost sure it's 6, because they say another one too. And I saw the parents, and they think. But I'll tell you what, we have to change our ways. We have to be smart. We have to be vigilant. We have to be tough. I turn on the television today. What do I see? Islamic, right? Right? Radical Islamic terrorism. That's what I see. A hotel blown up, blown to pieces. Hundreds of people horribly wounded and burning and running onto the streets. I mean, they say 25 killed. That was as of this morning when it happened, so the number's going to be a tremendous number. Something's going on. We got to be careful. We can't just do this. We got to make sure the migration. We don't know where these people come from. We don't know where they come from. We don't know where they come from. We have no idea. You know the story of the Trojan horse. This could be the ultimate Trojan horse. But we have no idea where they come from. I have a big heart. I mean, I actually do. I'm the world's most militaristic person, but that doesn't mean I want to use it. I want to have it because we need it. And I'm the one that didn't want to go into Iraq. And you've seen that and you've heard me say it. In 2003, 2004, they have headlines. Trump says, don't go into Iraq, you're going to destabilize the Middle East. That's good vision. Trump writes in his book in the year 2000 about Osama bin Laden. That's good vision. I talked about Osama bin Laden. Why didn't they kill him? And I saw him on television, and I read about him in the papers, and I saw this guy's really a threatening guy. Let's take him out. Nobody took him out. And they had a chance to take him out. Bill Clinton actually had a chance to take him out. They never pulled the trigger. You've heard that story. They had him, and they decided not to pull the trigger. Had they pulled the trigger, you probably wouldn't have had that destruction, because he was really in charge of that whole World Trade Center horror show that took place. So you got to have vision. So some people say, oh, Trump is very tough, and they're a little afraid. Like Bush, this guy Bush. He's like low energy, right? He lost another debate. Can you believe he lost? All he does is run for office. He loses debates. But he said, now think of it. Who won the debate? Did Trump win the debate? Right? I will say, this is the first time. You know, the polls all indicate, from virtually every debate, the polls all indicate, they do the polls. Drudge, who's an amazing guy, he has a poll. Time Magazine, Slate, all these places, you know, they all have these polls. It's like 7 or 8 of them, a lot of them. PBS, it's online polls. They have a poll for everything. I love polls. I love them. When you're number one. If I'm number 2, no, it's true. If I'm number 2, I wouldn't even, you know, a lot of people would be happy being number 2. Me, I'm not so happy. But I won every poll. The online polls. I come back. In fact, my daughter always goes to me, goes, Dad, you're leading in the poll. You're leading in the poll. You live every time we have a debate. But sometimes the pundits aren't so good to me. In other words, I may be leading big. One time I'm leading by 67% to, you know, second guy's like 9. 67%, think of it. And then I watch these guys on television. They say, well, I didn't like Donald Trump's performance. You know, they're very dishonest people. This is the first debate where they actually say, everybody said I won. They said I won. Finally, they're getting smart. They're getting smart. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the process, and, you know, we have fun with it. But we have really more fun in, you know, straightening out the country. It's not something I wanted to do. It's not something I wanted to be doing. I love my life. I love what I'm doing. I have a wonderful family. I have a fantastic company that I built that is an amazing company. We put in plans. A lot of people said, he'll never run. And then I ran. They said, oh, the pundits. Then they said, oh, he'll never sign Form A. It's a one-page. It's basically you sign your life away. I signed it. They said, what's this? They couldn't believe it. They said, oh, he'll never put in his financials. Never put in. Because, you know, he's probably not as rich as everybody thinks. So I put in my financials. A little secret, I would have filed them anyway, I think, because I would want to show everybody how good I've done. Because it's true. It's true. Because people don't even know. So I put in the financials, and you had to see these guys, see that group, all those people back there? It made them look like peanuts, waiting in front of the federal election, trying to find out what. And everybody saw, and these are all, you know, certified numbers, strong numbers by accounting firms and all. And the funny thing is, I had almost 100 pages of financials, and with tremendous numbers, and I filed on time. Then they said, by the way, oh, well, he's going to ask for extensions because you're automatically given 45-day extensions, so you could extend. So he'll ask for extensions beyond the election. Do you believe that? I said, fellas, I don't want any extensions, whatever it is, it is. We filed. The numbers are fantastic. Very little debt, tremendous cash flow, some of the great assets, you know, Doral Country Club in Miami, and so many assets all owned, 40 Wall Street and Trump Tower and Bank of America, big chunk Bank of America building in San Francisco, 1290 Avenue of the Americas, one of the biggest office buildings in New York, and so many others. And they said, what's this? Numbers are good. They were so devastated. And the only reason I tell you that is because that's the kind of thinking we need. I don't care about that. It's what we need to get our country. We owe $19 trillion. They just made this budget deal that's horrible. You know, they made it. They did it like in one day, right? Is it one day? It was done in one day. I never saw. And I'm actually more disappointed. I'm Republican. But I'm more disappointed with the Republicans because the conservative, you know, right? These guys, we send them down there, And they get down there, and I don't know what happens to them. But if you think about it, we know where the Democrats are coming from, right? I'm not I respect them. It's amazing. In fact, I said the other day, Obama is the worst negotiator I've ever seen, except when it comes to negotiating with the Republicans. Then he's a great negotiator, right? Right? It's true. I mean, I'm much more disappointed with the Republicans. And it went so quickly. That thing took like a day. It was like they said they're putting in a budget. And you're talking about a budget that's going to raise up the debt from $19 to $21 trillion very quickly. And it funds Obamacare. It funds the Syrians coming in. It funds people coming in through the border. I don't know what these people are thinking about. You know, we all and a Tea Party, we're tough, right? Tough people. And the Tea Party, by the way, I have to tell you, okay, because I'm getting great support from evangelicals, from sort of every group, and the Tea Party. But I have to tell you, the Tea Party people are amazing people. They're amazing. They want one thing. They want to make the country great again. They want to make the country great again. They're amazing, dedicated, wonderful Americans, and they want to see good things happen. That's what a Tea Party person is. I mean, it's so simple. They ask me, how do you define the Tea Party? And sometimes I say, maybe we should work on a public relations drive or something, okay? Because it's ridiculous. The Tea Party are among the greatest people, and they want to see this country get strong again, be great again, pay less taxes, make the dollar stretch better, have strong borders, protect the Second Amendment, which we're going to do. Get rid of Common Core. I mean, when guys like Bush come down, and then Lindsey Graham supports him, but I don't know if Lindsey Graham even knows this, but Bush is in favor of Common Core. Nobody can win when you're in favor of Common Core. It's a disaster. And he's also weak on immigration. Remember, they come across the border as an act of love. Do you remember that one? I heard those two, Common Core, act of love, and Lindsey Graham supporting him. I like Lindsey Graham, actually. I like him now that he's out. He gave up. He's a nice guy. I think he's a nice guy, actually. He's fine. But he's supporting, and I say, how can you support somebody that's in favor of Common Core and also that? So, it's one of those things. And it doesn't make any difference, because Lindsey's going to give him all of his people that voted for Lindsey. You know what that is? Zero. Everybody that voted for Lindsey, right? Everybody that voted for Lindsey's going to Bush. They'll say, everybody that voted for Lindsey Graham's going to Bush. And they'll say, Bush went down. I mean, he actually... Which is hard to do when you're at 3. You know what I do like, though, and what I talk about? I only talk about this because, he keeps taking ads about me. Some aren't even bad. I look actually sort of handsome. I was younger, and, I look good. But he keeps taking these ads, spending a fortune on ads against me. And which I say, why is he doing that? He's got to knock out about 7 or 8 guys before he gets to me. If I were him, honestly, I'd take like the guy in front of him, a couple of guys that, right? Don't you think? Not the guy up here. Because he may do damage to me, which would be fine, but, he's not going to benefit. One of the other guys is going to benefit. So it's a little stupid, but this is the kind of thinking we have going on in this country, But think of it. And I use Jeb as a thing. First of all, he's ashamed of his last name. Why doesn't he call himself Jeb Bush? I'm telling you, I'm a good brander. He's making a mistake. Jeb with the, hyphen, with the mark, with the exclamation point. Don't do that. Call yourself Jeb Bush. It's okay. If it doesn't work, it can't be any worse than it is now, right? 2%. Okay. But here's the thing. So Jeb has spent, this is like the Wollman skating rink. This is like the hotel, right? Under budget, ahead of schedule, me. So Jeb has spent $69 million so far. Wouldn't it be great if he could give that money to the wounded warriors? Seriously. Instead of wasting it, It's wasted. His campaign manager, these people are going out buying Ferraris and stuff, I assume. I mean, I don't know, but they're making a lot of money. I heard he took millions of dollars in Texas. They'll never get to Texas. You know why? Because if they don't spend the money, the guys in the campaign can't take their commission. Okay, does anyone know that? Do you know how vicious that is? I'm telling you, working in those campaigns is better than being a real estate broker in South Carolina. Okay? It's terrible. But Jeb has spent $69 million. And he's essentially at the bottom of the barrel, right? I spent like nothing, and I'm way ahead. I'm way up by 20 points or something. 20 points ahead. They'd like to have 20 points ahead. And I say to him, and by the way, just so you understand, I don't want to be like a cheap guy. I'm going to spend money. Somebody said, why? I said, 2 reasons. Number one, I don't want to take a chance, okay? I don't want to take a chance. I just, I authorized, we're spending actually quite a bit of money, but I authorized a pretty big buy of ads in Iowa, New Hampshire, and right here in South Carolina. But I said, I don't want to take a chance, number one. Number two, if you look at it, I just feel guilty. I feel so guilty. Because I haven't spent anything, and all these guys have all spent tremendous amounts of money, and I feel a little bit guilty. And sometimes they'll say, why aren't you spending the money? I say, because I have a 24-point lead. What do I have to spend money for? Seriously. No, it's sort of crazy. They call it earned media. And, like Face the Nation. The other day I did Face the Nation 2 weeks ago. And I get a note from the anchor, who's a very, very nice guy, John Dickerson, high-quality guy from CBS. They had the highest rating. And by the way, do you think I'd say this with like 12 cameras running? This is legit stuff, right? They had the highest rating in 15, 16 years since the fall of the World Trade Center. Think of it. They interviewed me. Do you know the power that gives me? What do I get out of it? I get nothing. They had the highest rating, 4.6 or 4.7 million people. They do not big numbers. They have Meet the Press had its highest rating. George Stephanopoulos, the highest rating. So that gives you a certain power. You can get things across. But when you have that power, you don't have to advertise because they want you on the show. When other people call, I'm not going to use names, but when other people call, because they're nice to me, they're not taking ads against me, meaning. But when other people call, they don't want them on the show because they don't get the ratings. They don't even care about poll numbers. They only care about ratings. If you had terrible poll numbers, right, and got good ratings, which usually doesn't work. Usually if they go hand in hand a little bit. But they don't care about poll numbers. They care about ratings. So when you have this, so I have a lot of earned media. So here I am. I spend no money, practically no money. Most of it's the fuel for my jet. Then they say, he leases his jet from himself. I said, yeah, I have to. There's a law. You have to lease it from, I lease my jet from myself. You have to figure a market value and pay yourself back. It's the craziest thing. So the thing is, Trump is making money on this campaign. He's paying himself money. I own the jet. I'm paying myself. No, do you believe it? We had one headline that Trump may be the first candidate in history to actually make money running for president. It's weird. It's weird. And we're selling, we're selling those DonaldJTrump.com, right? We're selling the hats. The hats Make America Great Again. The shirts we sell on the .com. Look how handsome that young guy is. And we're doing great. But anyway, I feel guilty, and I really do, and I just want to do it, and I don't want to take a chance. So we're spending money now. It's probably wasting. But here's the way I look at it. I'm $37.9 million under budget. In other words, I figured by January 1st, which is a couple of weeks ago, I would have spent $37.9 million. I think that was the number, right around that number, $38 million. Spent nothing. So I'm so far under budget. So if you don't mind, but I love telling the story that I spent nothing and I'm up here. Other guys spent tremendous amounts of money and they're down in the toilet, right? I love telling the story because if you could equate that to the country, think of this. In education, we're number 1 in the world in cost per student. By a factor of many, number 2 is way, doesn't even exist practically. We spend more per pupil than anybody else by far. And yet, we're number 28 in terms of quality. So we spend more than anybody else, and to a large extent, that's Common Core. Because, these people in Washington, the bureaucrats are making a fortune. They don't give a damn about your kids in South Carolina. Some of them do, in all fairness, but a lot of them don't. They want to know how much are they getting paid this week. And they do things and they write things and you're studying things that, you don't want to be, you're wasting your time. So, but wouldn't it be nice if, we spend the most amount of money and we're, doing horribly. We have third world nations that have better education than the United States, and yet we spend many times more than what anybody else spends, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you could take my campaign theory? We spend the least and we have the best. We spend the least and we have the best. And one of these systems, I think it's Norway, Sweden, China, some of these places have phenomenal educational systems. And one of the folks would tell me, actually in Iowa, they said, Mr. Trump, they're trying to get us to go Norway. So we can do that so easy, but they won't let us because the stuff that they have is so much, it's so bad. What they're sending us in from Washington, it's so bad. And these are parents. These are people that really love the students. These are great people that love the students, love the teachers, want to have the right teachers. There's no way of supervising it from Washington. But Norway, Sweden, China, these are places that have unbelievable areas of education. And I think Norway and Sweden are like number 1 and 2. And they study it, but they can't implement it because Washington won't let them. So we're going to change that. We're going to save money, and we're going to go way up the list. I want to watch because I'm a big believer in education, to put it mildly. We're going to go way up the list. So just to cut it short, here's the story. We're going to have strong borders. We're going to have the wall. We're not going to pay for the wall. We're going to have the wall. It's going to be a beautiful, gorgeous, big wall that they're going to name Trump someday. That's why I'm going to make it. Someday they'll call it the Trump wall, so I have to make it beautiful as opposed to, we're going to make it beautiful and very effective. Okay. We're going to take care of our military. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to be so strong. We're going to be so powerful. Nobody, and by the way, that's cheaper than what we're doing now. What we're doing now is insanity. We're weak, and they know we're weak. You know, when you hear we're not going here, we're not going there, I've been saying bomb the oil for how many years? You've been listening to me for 3-4 years. They just started doing it. ISIS became rich with the oil. Bomb the oil. You know, one of the reasons, and now I can't believe it, they actually said it's true. To me, it's hard to believe it's true. One of the reasons they didn't want to bomb the oil, why? Environmental pollution. No, it's a true. No, they say the smoke and everything going into the atmosphere is bad for the environment. No, it's true. Now, I don't know. Maybe they were kidding from the White House. Maybe they were kidding. I don't think it's anything to kid about. Environmental pollution. So how do you think General George Patton, who looked at people and they'd faint, right? How do you think General George Patton would feel about environmental pollution? Those wells would have been bombed 3 years ago, and if the president said no way, he'd say, oh, I'm sorry, President, we made a mistake. We bombed the hell out of the place. I'd like to apologize. Or General Douglas MacArthur. And we have General Douglas MacArthur, and we have George Patton right now coming out of West Point, coming out of Annapolis, coming out of the Air Force Academy. I mean, I went to a great school, but I know those schools, and those are great schools. We have great people, but a lot of times our great and tough and smart, they can't go to the top because they're not politically correct. One of the guys too tough. He's too smart. He uses bad language, or she, rough, tough. We need smart, tough people. We have to let our top people go to the top. When it comes to trade with China, we lose so much money. With Japan and China, Vietnam is a new one, Mexico, all of them. Everybody beats us. I know the smartest business. We have the greatest business people in the world. Nobody ever uses them. Nobody ever calls Carl Icahn, who's great, one of the richest people. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the money. Do you think he wants his $150,000? He wants to do something. If I took Carl, I said, Carl, do me a favor. We're getting killed with China on trade. And by the way, they come, they don't pay tax. When we send, there's plenty of tax, and you can't even get your product in there. Okay, folks, don't ever think it's free trade. It's totally unfair trade. But $500 million deficit, $500 billion deficit on a yearly basis. How can you have a country when you're losing that much? Then somebody says, oh, you're not a free trader. That's a I mean, how long do you have to be a free trader to lose $500 billion a year? Right? And you know, the funny thing, if we ever toughened up, they'd come to the table fast because they would have a depression, the likes of which nobody's ever seen. We have rebuilt China. What China's done to us is one of the greatest thefts in the history of the world. We have rebuilt China. And nobody, and I mean beyond Obama, I'm not just blaming, Obama's done nothing about it, but nobody has done anything. This has been going on for years and years and years. And it's time we get smart. It's not going to go over with Trump. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have a country with spirit. We're going to have a country with pizzazz. We're going to have a country that works. We're going to use our smartest and our brightest people. And I know who they are. I know so many. You know, I've been there. I've seen the greatest negotiators in the world. I know some that are overrated, some that are underrated, some you never heard of. But we're going to use real people. We're going to use the people that know how to do it. They're using right now political hacks. They're using people that gave campaign contributions. I mean, you give a campaign contribution to Ted Cruz, you get whatever the hell you want, okay? Whatever you want. And he's a very nice guy, but you give him, you have to get, right? You have to get, well, excuse me. He didn't report his bank loans? Excuse me. Didn't report his bank loans? Say whatever you want. He didn't report bank loans. That's okay. He didn't report his bank loans. He's got bank loans from Goldman Sachs. He's got bank loans from Citibank folks. And then he acts like Robin Hood. You know, say whatever you want, but it doesn't work that way. So we have to use our best people. We have to be smart. We have to be tough. We have to be vigilant. And we can do it. And we can make America greater than ever before. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.